Okay, everyone, spoilers today, TV show and book spoilers. The book, Fire and Blood, is written as a chronicle by a maester of the first 150 years of House Targaryen. The book is written as an unreliable narrative at times, containing witness accounts that conflict with each other. Now, readers have to wonder which witness account is true. Episode 4 of the TV show is pivotal. It gives hope to fans of the show like myself who didn't want the tragedy described by some witnesses in the book to be what really happened. So, on to the book spoilers. First, the death of Sunfyre is a departure from the book at this point in the timeline. Now, in this episode, Aegon and Larys go to Rook's Rest. Aegon wants to look upon the decaying carcass of Sunfyre. At first, Aegon thinks the dragon is alive. He leans against it and says, "Wake up, Sunfyre, I'm here." Now, this scene made me nervous because later in the timeline, there is a zombie dragon reanimated by the Night King, which we all watched in shock as it brought down the wall, which had stood for 8,000 years. Now, in this episode, Sunfyre remains lifeless while Aegon and Larys walk away, Aegon having taken a tooth from the dragon's carcass as a keepsake. So, unless Sunfyre is hibernating, which might be how it tries to mend its wounds, the TV show is telling us that the real history of the Targaryens is very different from what some of the witnesses reported to the Maester. Now, as I mentioned, the book is written on purpose to be unreliable at times, but the TV show is giving us the events in real time as they happened, and so presumably we're watching what really happened. Second book spoiler, an event we did not want to watch on screen. Prince Daemon's rumored love affair with a teenage dragon rider while he's still married to Rhaenyra. Now, the teenager is named Nettles, and she rides Sheepstealer. But on the TV show, Sheepstealer is bonded to Rhaena, Prince Daemon's daughter, with Rhaena Velaryon. Now, even last season, the internet was talking about this, that there is no Nettles on the TV show, and that Rhaena had taken on the arc of taming the wild dragon Sheepstealer. Well, in this episode, the show seems to be telling us that there was no Nettles in the book either. It was just a witness account that turned out to be false, because on the TV show, Daemon is shielding his daughter Rhaena, who's gone into hiding after inadvertently causing the death of Jace at the Battle of the Gullet. In this episode, Rhaena has assumed a false identity. She's cut her hair, and maybe she'll begin calling herself Nettles. She tells her father to let everyone think she died. She has such guilt for causing the death of Jace. And it's mentioned that Prince Daemon wasn't much of a father to Rhaena, so we'll probably see them develop a parent-child bond, as with Corlys and his sons, Alan and Adam. Now, I believe the show is telling us that the Nettles and Daemon love affair rumor in the book was always a fiction. People who saw them together may have reported that Daemon was carrying on an affair with the teenager. So those are the two big reveals in episode 4. But caveats. If Sunfyre turns out to be just hibernating on the TV show, and if a new character is introduced, maybe a teenage dragon rider by the name of Skittles, all bets are off. Next, Ormund Hightower has garrisoned the town of Tumbleton. Lord Footly is forced to house Ormund himself, and the small folk are forced to house Ormund's soldiers. Now, one of them tries to rape Cat, the wife of Hugh Hammer. Cat's sister-in-law gets her arm broken trying to stop him. Cat's brother Leo gets the upper hand, and they all go to Ormund, who sentences the soldier to be gelded for trying to rape Cat and for his arm to be broken as he broke the lady's arm. Now, we're led to believe Ormund might try to help the small folk, as Rhaenyra does, but there are hints of his controlling nature and twisted piety. For instance, when Lord Footly explains he bent the knee to Rhaenyra because she's the queen, Ormund says, "Is she the queen or just a with a dragon?" Now, later, Ormund receives a raven from Ormund Hightower, who says Aemond won't be arriving at Tumbleton after all because Aemond can't be found. Now, the Hightower defenses at Tumbleton won't hold without Vhagar, so Ormond, who's just snorted the aromatics from his perfume tin, freaks out and begins hacking the table with his sword. Now, Hugh Hammer is sent to patrol Tumbleton on Vermithor. He's alternating shifts with Ulf White, who pays a visit to a tavern he used to frequent and buys a round of drinks for everybody. Hey! Now, later he asks Rhaenyra to grant favors for his friends at the tavern. But she tells him he can find beer in the Red Keep and that he's not to leave the Red Keep unless being escorted to the Dragon Pit. Now, it's then he tells her about the graffiti he saw around King's Landing. He can't read, apparently. Someone reads the graffiti aloud to him. He tells Rhaenyra they're vile words, and they're about him as well, but with the way that Rhaenyra is treating him, can he help but think she believes those words as well? Now, meanwhile, Aegon and Larys are hiding out at Rook's Rest. A mini tourism industry has sprung up around the carcasses of Sunfyre and Meleys. Now, Meleys is still embedded atop the architecture where she landed. Aegon and Larys are pretending to be small folk. Larys is put to work using his literacy and knowledge of herbs. Aegon is put to work in the latrines. They're able to avoid trouble for a while and find out that Rhaenyra has declared Aegon to be dead. Now that gives them anonymity while they plot his resurrection, so to speak. But then Aegon is told there's no food left. The latrine workers will have to wait to be fed tomorrow. Aegon confronts the bully in charge, who pulls a knife and forces Aegon to call him my lord and to kiss his poop-covered shoe. So, Aegon is humbled this episode. If Sunfyre really is dead, Aegon's journey back to the Iron Throne will have to come through very different means. Now, I had mentioned that Ormund Hightower wrote to Ormond to say Aemond's not coming. Gwaine realized that after he and Cole went to Harrenhal and found it empty except for Alice Rivers. Now, Aemond was supposed to meet them there, but Alice says Aemond flew off on Vhagar after finding out that Rhaenyra had taken King's Landing, which was the first that Gwaine and Cole had heard about the transfer of power. Now, Gwaine wants to go to Tumbleton to join Ormond, but Cole says no. They'll stay in the Riverlands and fight Daemon's army despite being outnumbered 20-1. He would rather fight men than dragons, he says. Their honor demands it. He explains he grew up poor and thinks differently about warfare than Gwaine. Fighting man to man, at least they have a chance. Now let's shift the scene back to King's Landing. Corlys is avoiding the small council. He prepares to return to sea and tells Alan to attend in his place. It's an opportunity for Alan to better himself since Corlys cannot legitimize him. Alan and Rhaenyra seem to hit it off. They bond over the miniature of old Valyria. Viserys kept it as a reminder that even great dynasties fall. Then it comes up that Aegon killed all the rat catchers. Alan says he used cats to keep the rat population down on his ships. And with that, his stock begins to rise on the small council. Now, Mysaria had said a master of coin should be appointed so that he can be blamed when the small folk find out they can't pay for anything. Rhaenyra appoints Sir Torrhen Manderly, who was one of the nobles who had hoarded grain during the blockade and caused the small folk to starve. So, that's planning ahead. Now, last episode, Daemon was sent to the Vale to extract money from Lady Jane Arryn. In this episode, she complains about the baby dragon that Rhaenyra had sent to protect the Vale and calls Daemon a beggar with a tin cup. But eventually, Daemon does return to King's Landing with bags of gold. Before going to King's Landing, though, Caraxes takes Daemon on a detour to a cave in the Vale. Now, that's where Daemon's reunited with Rhaena and finds out she was Sheepstealer's rider at the Gullet. Now, he tells her, you shouldn't have done this. Wild dragons are different. They cannot be trusted. Now, nearby is a shepherd tending sheep. When Daemon returns to King's Landing with the gold, he brings the man's head, burnt beyond recognition, and tells Rhaenyra, this is the man who rode Sheepstealer and caused Jace's death in the Gullet. Rhaenyra is upset she couldn't execute the man herself. Daemon tells her the gold should be used to pay the gold cloaks, but Rhaenyra says alms should be paid to the small folk first. Now, the gold cloaks trust Daemon, so he's told to tell them to be patient. Now, in the final scene, we see Daeron Targaryen with his dragon, Tessarion. Ormond walks in and says, I warned you about indulging in affection for that beast. You're a good boy, but your blood is tainted. The Targaryens with their dark spells created abominations that subdued our right to the Iron Throne. He calls the Targaryens a savage race, poor in intellect, but rich in cunning. The brutes even raised a woman to the Iron Throne, which is a desecration. Now, he reveals his plan for Daeron to be king because Daeron was raised as a Hightower. Then Ormond brings Kat's brother, Leo, into the room. Daeron is upset and wants to show mercy, but Ormond gives him a sword and says, don't disappoint me. So, Daeron kills Leo. Tessarion comes up and begins breathing dragon fire. Ormond says, now we begin. We hear sounds of chomping. End of episode. So Ormond has turned Daeron into his own creature to restore the High Towers to glory, to the time before Aegon's conquest. Now, Daeron has no say in the matter. He looks to Ormond as the only father figure he's ever known, although Ormond doesn't show any love for Daeron in this episode, just manipulation and control. Now, this episode, Alicent finds out that Helena is pregnant, which is a gestating threat to Rhaenyra's rule. Now, we also realize this episode that Alicent's plan to have Aegon declared dead is helping Aegon and keeping his threat as a usurper alive. Aegon is undergoing a major character transformation. I believed he was growing into rulership and maturity, and that's there as well, but he doesn't hide his seething. Now, part of the transformation, it seems, is he's discovering he is a Hightower after all, and the death of his dragon is part of that. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, leave a like and don't forget to subscribe.